Are you a glass half empty or glass half full kind of person? Optimist or pessimist? I've had some friends say, well, I'm a realist, so the glass is just half. I'm not an optimist or a pessimist or even a realist. I'm an idealist. I'm much more interested in the potential of the glass. I see a glass and I'm filled with energy and enthusiasm for all of the possibilities and all of the things that the glass can be. It could be a drinking vessel, a vase for flowers or herbs. It can be used as a biscuit cutter or a cookie cutter, a pencil holder to magnify the sounds at doors or walls, as a template to draw a circle, as a rolling pin, a measuring cup, a candle holder. And if it's a crystal glass, you could fill it with varying amounts of water and make it sing. When we read a text like Isaiah 65 and the creation of new heavens and new earth, about the wolf and the lamb eating together and the lion eating straw like an ox, you might think that the prophet is an optimist. Wolf and lamb eating together? Ha! Clearly, this dude has lost touch with reality. That is not the way of the world. But Isaiah isn't focused on what is. He's focused on the way it could be, on how things should be. We know he's aware of reality because we can detect the painful experience of Israel woven throughout this text. No more shall there be in it an infant that lives but a few days, or an old person who does not live out a lifetime. They shall build houses and inhabit them. They shall plant vineyards and eat their fruit. They shall not build and another inhabit. They shall not plant and another eat. Those no mores and shall nots have been their painful reality. It's been 70 some odd years, give or take. Those who were taken as adult prisoners of war in Babylon have likely died. Many of those returning were born in exile and have spent their lifetime separated from the others who remained in Judah after the war and after the destruction of the temple. And now they've been returned to Judah, and they're trying to figure out how to rebuild their lives. Or maybe they're wondering if that's even possible. How do you rebuild your life in a place you've never been? How do you rebuild your life when all you've known is pain, violence, death, and destruction? I think maybe some of us can relate. Some of us all too well, maybe. Our lives are marked by befores. Before COVID, before the recession, before that death, before that job loss. For ancient Israel, one of the biggest befores was the destruction of the temple at the time of the exile, when they were taken by the Babylonians as prisoners of war. The people of Jerusalem, those who were not taken as prisoners of war into exile, are experiencing some serious theological and religious disorientation upon the return of the exiles. There are deep religious, social, and economic divisions between them. This is a community in real crisis. This larger context enhances our appreciation of what a powerful message of hope that this text contains. The book of Isaiah covers a vast amount of history, events spanning several hundred centuries. The prophet himself was active during the mid-8th century, before Jesus, during the war between Israel in the north and Judah in the south, a civil war. Several centuries later, the prophet's words regarding that conflict were reapplied to a new situation and a new vision for what could be. This vision began to see a restored Jerusalem, which included the centrality of the temple for true and right worship of God, along with a hope for an actual just and righteous king, a vision for the Messiah. So when we think about messianic expectations in this light, we can understand a bit more easily why Jesus' own disciples often don't get what he's about. Their theological understanding of who the Messiah is and what the Messiah will accomplish have been molded and shaped by their own social history and cultural context. So when we read, as in Luke today, about Jesus talking about the destruction of the temple in their own time, he's trampling on some sacred ground. In their theological imagination, the Messiah will not let that happen. The Messiah will never let the temple be destroyed again. However, the temple, which was necessary for the reformation of community at one point in their history, has now actually become a stumbling block to their life in God in their own time. In this passage from Luke, it may seem at first glance like Jesus actually is talking about the end of the world. That was a long and frightening list that Lynn read for us. It certainly feels bleak enough for the end of all things. But biblical scholarship helps us to see that the Gospel of Luke was written several decades after Jesus' death and resurrection. By the time he writes the text that is the Gospel of Luke, Luke has Jesus seeming to predict future events that have already actually happened. And so, in a fine biblical tradition, Luke is reimagining history through the lens of Jesus' life, ministry, death, and resurrection. And this time, the destruction of the temple and the holy city of Jerusalem has new meaning as well. Where the temple and the city and the God-appointed king were once central to right worship, all of it has been replaced by Jesus. As we are fond of saying in our own faith tradition, Jesus is the center of our faith, not the temple, not the king, not anything else. So in both this text in Isaiah and the first century of Luke, there was real disorientation, real confusion, both theologically and religiously. And it makes me wonder about us. What of our own problems today? How do we live in disorienting and confusing times? This week, a few of us from our congregation joined Exceptional Parents Unlimited, EPU, for the second neighborhood drive-through food market. You might remember that EPU supports and resources families with children born prematurely, who have disabilities or chronic illnesses. They opened the Willow Center right here on our campus this summer to serve this neighborhood and surrounding area. The neighborhood drive-through food market is a new initiative happening every second Thursday of the month, right here in our own parking lot. So this week, we distributed 8 pallets of food, twice as much as last month, and everything was fresh. Each family received 3 dozen eggs, 5 bags of shredded cheese, 2 10-pound sacks of potatoes, a box filled with fresh broccoli, celery, eggplants, bell peppers, plums, and 3 bags of avocados. At the end, it was 5 bags of avocados. As volunteers, we had so much fun dreaming up all of the different meals that could be made with these fresh and beautiful ingredients. So much possibility. I didn't have time to do this, but I am so very glad that I did. It was such a gift, so grounding to be part of something so meaningful and clearly impactful. These readings from Isaiah and Luke come to us near the end of our church's year, the liturgical year. And at the end, we begin again, because we're a part of a cycle. In each cycle of creation and recreation of communities throughout the Bible and the end times that each of these communities face, we also see traces of a continually unfolding and deepening understanding of God. We, too, are a part of that long line of prophets and saints who keep planting vineyards and trees, come what may. So when it feels like the world is falling apart around you, do something practical and tangible. Invest in something, work towards something. Whether it's planting a garden, sewing school kit bags, or volunteering to help at a neighborhood food market. It's how we live out our faith. This is how we strengthen and exercise hope. Hope isn't just a nice idea or a warm, fuzzy feeling. Hope means living the resurrection. So I'll close with two beautiful pieces of writing that provide, I think, some inspiring pathways forward when it feels like the world is falling apart around us. The first is from Lenore Hebert's piece that she composed in our writing group this week. She writes, "To feel the balmy and warm spring breezes after Colorado's icy winds and crusty old snow, to sit on the newly green grass among the new blooming daffodils in my shirt sleeves and just soak up the sunshiny light. How healing. What a message that drama, turmoil, and disruption may last for a day, but there will always come spring. It's a cycle." And finally, a few snippets from Manifesto, The Mad Farmer Liberation Front by Wendell Berry. So friends, every day, do something that won't compute. Love the Lord, love the world, work for nothing. Ask the questions that have no answers. Invest in the millennium. Plant sequoias. Say that your main crop is the forest that you did not plant, that you will not live to harvest. Say that the leaves are harvested when they have rotted into the mold. Call that prophet. Prophesy such returns. Practice resurrection. Amen.